People often come up to me and they say, Dr. Peterson, I want to change my life. I want things to get better. And I think, well, that's a noble aspiration. There's something deeply human about wanting to move from chaos to order, from confusion to clarity, from suffering to meaning. But the problem is, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, they don't actually want to do the work. They want transformation without sacrifice, growth without pain, victory without struggle. And that's not how reality functions. The world doesn't reward wishful thinking. It rewards discipline, sacrifice, and responsibility. You have to understand something fundamental. Your life is not a story of what you intend to do. It's a story of what you actually do. The gap between those two, between your intentions and your actions, that's where suffering festers. That's where regret grows. So when I say do the work, I mean confront what you know you've been avoiding. Clean your room, not because it's trivial, but because it's a declaration of intent. It's you saying, I'm willing to bring order to at least one small corner of chaos. And once you do that, something remarkable happens. You start to realize that you can bring order to more than your room. You can bring order to your mind, to your relationships, to your entire life. But it begins with work, real, consistent, often tedious work. It's the kind of effort that forces you to confront your inadequacies. And that's frightening, because when you start doing the work, you see who you actually are, not who you pretend to be. You see your limitations, your laziness, your envy, your resentment, but that confrontation is necessary. It's the only way forward. You see, life is full of dragons, metaphorical dragons. And every time you avoid responsibility, every time you procrastinate, every time you choose comfort over courage, that dragon grows. It becomes bigger, meaner, harder to face. But when you do the work, when you voluntarily face the thing that terrifies you, the dragon shrinks. You become stronger, you gain competence, and with competence comes confidence. And here's the paradox: when you do the work to change yourself, you begin to change the world. Because you're part of the world. If you can fix what's broken in you, honestly, courageously, then you can start to fix what's broken around you. That's not arrogance. That's responsibility. So the call to action is simple, but not easy. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop telling yourself that you'll start when you feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Start anyway. Pick up the heaviest burden you can bear and carry it. Not because suffering is good in itself, but because it gives life meaning. The meaning is in the struggle, and over time you'll notice something profound. The chaos begins to recede. Your life, bit by bit, becomes a reflection of the discipline, honesty, and effort you've invested into it. So do the work, not because someone else told you to, not because it's easy, but because your future, your very soul, depends on it. Do the work. Change your life. And in some small but significant way, change the world. Confront what you've been avoiding. Responsibility is the path to transformation. You see, people often underestimate how much of their suffering is tied to avoidance. It's not just the things that happen to you that create chaos in your life, but the things you refuse to face. Every time you turn away from something difficult, every time you push aside the responsibility that calls for your attention, you allow chaos to grow quietly in the background. It doesn't disappear, it waits, gaining strength while you look the other way. Eventually, it becomes so large that it dominates your thoughts and paralyzes your actions. The truth is, the weight of avoided responsibility is far heavier than the burden of responsibility itself. When you finally decide to confront what you've been avoiding, something powerful begins to shift inside you. There's an awakening that happens when you stop running from your fears and face them directly. It's not pleasant, it's not comfortable, and it's certainly not easy, but transformation never occurs in comfort. Growth happens when you voluntarily walk into the territory of discomfort, armed with courage and humility. Responsibility at its core is a declaration that you're willing to face reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. That's where true change starts, not in fantasies of who you might become, but in the confrontation with who you actually are right now. Avoidance breeds weakness. Every time you shy away from the hard thing, you tell yourself that you are incapable of dealing with it. Over time, this erodes your confidence and undermines your integrity. You begin to distrust yourself because deep down, you know you're living below your potential. When you finally take responsibility, when you pick up the burden that belongs to you, you reverse that decay. You start to rebuild your sense of strength brick by brick. Responsibility doesn't crush you, it defines you. It gives shape to your character. It's the structure that supports meaning in life. Responsibility also brings clarity. When you avoid something, it tends to grow in the shadows of your mind, becoming distorted and overwhelming. But when you turn to face it, you often find that it's not as impossible as you imagined. The act of confrontation brings light to the chaos. You begin to see patterns, possibilities, and solutions that were hidden before. Responsibility transforms confusion into direction. It's the antidote to helplessness, the thing that grounds you in reality and restores your sense of agency. Taking responsibility also demands that you stop blaming others for the state of your life. It requires humility, the recognition that while you may not be at fault for everything that has happened to you, you are still responsible for what you do next. That distinction is crucial. Blame keeps you powerless, but responsibility empowers you. It gives you the authority to change. The more you take on, the more capable you become. It's a paradox: the greater the burden, the stronger the person who bears it. You don't become powerful by avoiding difficulty. You become powerful by shouldering it willingly. This process isn't linear. The moment you confront what you've been avoiding, resistance appears. Your mind will offer excuses, your body will crave comfort, and your emotions will try to steer you away from the pain. But you must persist, because on the other side of that resistance lies transformation. Every time you face a fear, it loses its grip on you. Every time you take responsibility for something difficult, you grow in competence and character. It's not about perfection, it's about progression. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand upright in the chaos of the world and still move forward. When you choose to confront what you've been avoiding, you take the first step toward becoming whole. You begin to integrate the fragmented parts of yourself that you've kept hidden behind avoidance and denial. Responsibility is not a punishment, it's an invitation to become more than you are, to engage with life fully, to transform suffering into strength and fear into wisdom. Discipline and sacrifice are the real catalysts for change, not motivation. Motivation is fleeting, it comes and goes like the weather. You might wake up one morning feeling inspired, ready to conquer the world, but by afternoon, that feeling fades. If you rely on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent because feelings are unreliable. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It's the act of doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. It's showing up every single day and putting in the work regardless of mood, circumstance, or convenience. Discipline is built through repetition, through the daily decision to choose order over chaos, responsibility over comfort, growth over ease. Sacrifice is inseparable from discipline. You can't move forward in life without giving something up. To build anything meaningful, you must let go of distractions, comfort, and sometimes even relationships that keep you stagnant. Every meaningful achievement carries a cost, and that cost is paid in sacrifice. The question is never whether you'll sacrifice, but what you'll sacrifice for. People often want success without loss, but transformation demands trade-offs. You can't hold on to the old version of yourself and expect to become something new. Change requires that you surrender what's familiar for what's possible. The disciplined person understands this truth. They accept the discomfort that comes with sacrifice because they see the long-term value in it. They know that real progress is not made in bursts of inspiration, but in the quiet, often unseen moments of consistency. Discipline aligns your actions with your purpose, and sacrifice gives those actions weight. Together, they form the foundation for transformation, turning intention into achievement and potential into reality. Order begins with small, consistent actions that bring structure to chaos. Many people look at their lives and see the overwhelming disorder, failed routines, broken promises, neglected responsibilities, and they become paralyzed by the enormity of it all. They think they have to fix everything at once, but that mindset only leads to despair. The truth is, order doesn't emerge in grand, sudden transformations. It begins in the smallest acts of discipline. When you make your bed in the morning, when you clean your workspace, when you plan your day with intention, you're sending a message to yourself and to the world: I am taking responsibility for what I can control. That's where stability begins, with the decision to bring structure to one small corner of your existence. Small actions matter because they accumulate. They build momentum. What begins as a simple routine, something as trivial as keeping your room clean or showing up on time, slowly expands into a pattern of order that reshapes your identity. You start to see yourself differently as someone capable of handling responsibility and imposing structure on chaos. The external order you create mirrors the internal order developing within you. As you bring clarity to your environment, you begin to bring clarity to your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions. The world feels less hostile and more navigable because you have proven in small ways that you can manage it. Consistency is the key. Order is not established by occasional effort, but by daily commitment. It's in the repetition that transformation takes root. Each small act of order reinforces discipline, and discipline becomes the foundation for greater competence. Through these seemingly minor efforts, chaos is subdued, and a sense of meaning begins to emerge from the structure you've built. Face your inner weaknesses honestly. That's where real growth begins. Most people spend their lives running from the parts of themselves they don't want to see. They distract themselves with work, entertainment, or constant noise, anything to avoid the quiet moments when truth begins to surface. But those weaknesses don't disappear just because you ignore them. They remain beneath the surface, shaping your behavior and decisions in ways you don't fully understand. The act of facing them requires courage. The willingness to look directly at your flaws, insecurities, and failures without turning away. It's not a comfortable process, but it's the only way to develop genuine strength. When you confront your weaknesses, you begin to understand their roots. Maybe it's fear, laziness, resentment, or pride, but whatever it is, identifying it gives you power over it. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. You can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. By examining your weaknesses with honesty rather than judgment, you transform them from enemies into teachers. Each one shows you where growth is needed, where discipline must be applied, and where humility must replace denial. This internal confrontation becomes a form of purification, burning away the false narratives that keep you trapped in mediocrity. Real growth doesn't come from pretending to be strong, it comes from admitting where you're weak and choosing to face it head on. The person who is aware of their flaws and works daily to improve them becomes far stronger than the one who hides behind false confidence. Strength born from honesty is unshakable because it's grounded in reality, not illusion. To face your weaknesses is to reclaim control over your own development and to transform vulnerability into a source of wisdom, resilience, and authenticity. Doing the work on yourself is the first step toward changing the world. People often look outward and see the corruption, injustice, and disorder around them, and they feel compelled to fix it. But the world is a reflection of the individuals who inhabit it. If people are broken, dishonest, and undisciplined, then the systems they create will mirror that brokenness. Real change doesn't begin with grand movements or loud declarations. It begins in the quiet work of self-improvement. When you take responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, and your character, you begin to influence the world around you in ways that are both subtle and profound. Order in one person's life creates ripples of order beyond it. You cannot lead others where you refuse to go yourself. If you want truth, you must first be truthful. If you want justice, you must act justly in your own life. If you want strength, you must cultivate it through discipline and sacrifice. The individual who has faced their own chaos becomes capable of bringing order to the chaos of others. That's the starting point of leadership, not authority, but integrity. By doing the inner work, by confronting your fears, weaknesses, and responsibilities, you develop the moral foundation needed to influence the world without becoming corrupted by it. The impulse to change the world is noble, but without inner transformation, it's incomplete. The world improves when individuals improve. Every act of discipline, every moment of honesty, every effort to do what is right, regardless of recognition, contributes to a collective shift toward order and meaning. When you build strength within yourself, you set an example that calls others to do the same. Personal transformation is not separate from societal transformation, it is its foundation.